everybody. I'm here with Mekaal Hasan, producer, guitarist, based in Lahore, Pakistan, and one of my new favorite people on the planet. He has a new project called Rivayat, which translates as tradition in Urdu, and he worked with a collection of not indigenous, street musicians, local musicians, tribal musicians, village musicians who created, who have a really powerful legacy to the music that they make. And he had seen that some of these songs were being taken by westernized pop stars in Pakistan, and they were being credited to the artist that made them. And he felt it was up to him to actually create something with the actual musicians that were doing this work. It falls perfectly within our charter here at Samar, where we celebrate diversity, champion our shared humanity, and specifically elevate and try to promote as much music that is rooted and that creates a, as we say, a transcendent state in the audience and the artists that make them. Mekaal, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I know we spoke a little while ago. We had a little bit of technical issues. Obviously, you're in Lahore. I'm in Seattle. The fact that we're talking right now is magical. But if I could ask you, once again, tell me what was your inspiration for this project, and you know, I want to add another thing. What did you learn from this project? Maybe about yourself and about these other musicians that surprised you.
So the project really started because I studied jazz composition at Berkeley, and I did 2 years there. And during that time, I met all kinds of musicians. My good fortune was that I had a roommate who was very eclectic in his taste and was also a great player and a great composer. And so that sort of like set the foundation for always being open to all kinds of music, not just jazz or rock, or, you know, you might have a inclination towards certain things, but, you know, you tend to develop a tendency for a wider range of sounds. And what I've been noticing was that in my country, there's a lot of pop music where the pop stars will often sing folk melodies or cover folk songs, and thereby, you know, it's instantly familiar, yet it's also kind of like shiny new. And that had been happening for quite a while. And other than that, there were a multitude of issues, which was that the state attitude towards performing arts in Pakistan is lacking, and it is up to, I think, true music lovers to really start putting their weight behind their desires to see better music being heard. And it's not just about the music being made, it's also about the people making the music. Rivayat is about those people whose families have been doing this for 400 years. Successive generations are invested in carrying forth that legacy. So, you know, you've got that kind of history in this music. And I fear that our young people and people who are curious about music in general, such as myself, where do I go to if I want to find out about what is folk music in Pakistan, or what's the state of classical music in Pakistan? Or I've heard of Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan and Qawwali. Are there other Qawwals who are worth listening to? So this Rivayat project really becomes a sort of like a home for music that is authentic, that is being performed by people connected to the tradition, because I find that having a musical connection really sets you apart. You once you're in that tradition, the option of being mediocre becomes a life or death situation. You have to be brilliant, you know. You have to be brilliant. And all these people are brilliant in their own unique way. And it's all stuff they've written themselves. So they're not doing any real covers as such. They're performing stuff their families have written in many, many cases. They are covers of traditional folk material, but that's the norm in the Southeast Asia region. Folk tunes have come down because of the customs enshrined in those songs. They keep on having a lifespan longer than most songs. So anyways, the idea is to present all of this and to let the musicians speak authentically, We recorded everything in one take. So you can imagine the quality of the musicianship that everybody had to get through this thing in one go. Just the same way they used to do those recordings back in the 40s and the 50s. Exactly the same approach. And oftentimes the artist would come in and we'd be like, don't do cover songs, don't do film songs, do songs that your family has written or you've written. I want to hear those, you know. So it came together in a real sort of like in the spirit of Miles. That's how it came together.
Miles
Yeah,
Davis.
you look deeper into
Yeah.
what people have to offer, and from that, something comes out which you couldn't have created on your own. So there's no way any one person could cover that diversity of music in an authentic way and present it to the public. So you need to have a program like this.
How did you find him?
The friends. I've been
Okay.
I've run a studio for 30 years. I have a band, Mekaal Hasan band, and that band has always worked with traditional classical musicians. And so there's these musical families who live in the old part of Lahore, and some of these families, it goes back to 500, 600 years. That's how long they've been doing music, successive generations of singers and musicians. And anyways, so what would happen was that I knew quite a few musicians, but they knew a ton more. So the musicians would make recommendations on what to record next. Do we do let's do we have anybody who plays sarangi? Like, how many sarangi players are there alive in Pakistan? Turns out there are three, and one guy's got polio, and he's the one who's the best with them. So we recorded him.
Of
you know
course.
we recorded a guy who works in the police. His sons are in the police, and he's an amazing clarinet player, like for real, man.
I have so many questions, but let me ask you: how did these musicians make a living? Obviously, the pandemic shut everything down. There isn't that kind of state
Yeah,
support around
yeah.
it. How did they survive?
So most of them play at private weddings. That's a relatively good source of earnings. So during the winter season, when weddings are chock-a-block, a lot of these people are booked. So they play for those. They play for private events sometimes, like people will hold private concerts at a dinner or something. They also the ones who are really sort of like on the periphery will often just stay at shrines and perform there, and people will give them tips. So sort of like busking, you know. Um, and yeah, that's how it is. And what's happening now is that the later generations of kids are not pursuing music. They've got jobs, they're studying accounting, or they're studying you know the internet, like technology and software engineering. They're into that, and because they have brilliant minds, they can shift over and do that too. But really, with artists, this, man. Like, you're born a certain way. You are miserable if you're not that person. If you're not that thing,
Yeah.
you're miserable.
Yeah.
You are no longer the person you used to be, and that change is too much for people to take. I can't take it. I have to do something with my life more than just say, hey, I made 3 records. I mean, my life's got to stand
Yeah.
for something more. So I thought that why not do this crazy idea, like bring it all together.
It's a beautiful idea, and it's so important. It's also, I want to ask you this question that I ask a lot of artists that are doing similar work, where they're super focused on preserving um, the the legacy, the history of their music, their country. You're talking about 3 Sarangi players left in Pakistan. One is polio. You're talking about a 400, 500-year-old musical generation that might be stopping.
Yeah.
Is there a sense of concern, shall we say, within Pakistan for this art
No,
passing?
no. There's the government gives money to arts organizations, and they try and do what they can. Problem is, it's not effective. I want effective change. I want people to be able to directly know these musicians, to be able to reach out and collaborate with them. This is not about money. This is about dignity.
Yeah.
that they are reduced to begging and to joblessness and homelessness. They don't have shelter just because they're artists and they don't sell out. Come on, man. That's not cool. You know,
Ah, that's not that's not
that's
cool
not cool.
at all.
And this is how it is. That this is the level of the poverty that it gets to. So what I'm trying to tell you is that when they're at the shrines, people will feed them, even if they're not making money. They'll get food.
Hmm.
So in that
And
sense,
these are the Sufi.
yeah,
These are the Sufi
yes,
shrines that because
yeah, yeah,
okay, so and that's where they
yeah.
perform. Okay.
So in that sense, society itself has these customs which don't let them die. But honestly, that is no way to keep living either. It's like, okay, you won't die, but what kind of creative impulse are you going to have? It's going to be washed out of you, killed.
Yeah.
So I'm really concerned. I see it like this. And I see this same danger happening with authentic music across the world. I see it happening with
Hmm.
jazz. It really concerns me because I really love that music. And I think it's the best thing America ever did is
Yeah, yeah. It's the
is
it's
jazz.
the it's the
Yeah.
one the longest
It's for sure the one
um
that changed the world the most without any intentions
yeah,
of doing so. Yeah.
yeah. And it came from the population that was most displaced,
Yes. Yes.
which is interesting in itself. And so there's a interesting parallel to these
That's what
groupings
I'm
too, because
saying.
there's all
It's
this pressure.
this roots
Yeah.
music thing is the music of the oppressed. It's always
Yep.
it's the music of those who have been jilted by the system and don't have a
Yep.
voice. They can't speak English, for example. Derek, this is how it is. They can't speak. So who's going to
Yeah.
speak for them? Because other Pakistanis who get a lot of fame don't seem to care.
Do you think that, are you hoping that this project, obviously you're talking to me about it right now, so there's an audience, an export audience, shall we say, for it. People that dig deeper and would want to find us. But what do you want your fellow Pakistanis, your friends, other musicians, your fellow citizens in Lahore, what do you want them to take away from this project?
That maybe we should, instead of asking people for money, invest the money we have into the resources we have.
Hmm.
And if people had that approach, we would start to eventually be able to start making money for everybody from those incentives, from those ideas. Like if you put your resources into something and it's of value, then that's money well spent. So
Yeah.
I'm kind
Yeah.
of looking
Yep.
at
Yep.
it as an example for other creative people, especially songwriters and musicians who are under this pressure that they have to put out content all the time. Otherwise, they don't have numbers. So there's a smart way around it. Let's all create a program where we each pick songs and we just start and play whichever ones we want. And we will have
Yeah.
generated enough content for everybody to share throughout the year. And you don't even have to produce it yourself. The program produces it. You get it? So everybody can share
Yep.
in the profits because everybody's part of the
Yeah.
publishing. You're not taking away their publishing, you're teaching them about it. That,
Yeah.
when the money comes in, these are the splits, which record companies will not do.
No, no, obviously
So I
it's
also, by the way,
that's a whole
I
other
also have copyrighted the material in the name of the poets and the composers and artists. So their names are there. So anybody wants to research it, it's in the credits and it's registered. So
awesome.
so I'm trying to do the right thing and build it up from the ground. But I also want to give you some amazing music. Like these are some of the wow. You just entered this world, man. It's just like this trip, like Alice in Wonderland. You just go into this world of this luscious sounds and soul. It's very soulful. I find it very beautiful because it breathes and there's emotion there and there's storytelling. Everything is done with the intent of telling you, taking you down a path, and that's what all the great music does. It takes you down a path. Like Nefertiti, it's like you're falling down all the time.
Oh,
You know?
no, I've been listening. And as I said, I played it on my show. my radio show, and it was beautiful. The reaction was lovely, and it's also something that's really needed right now because as we were saying, we don't get enough music from Pakistan. Obviously, we're getting music from India, we're getting music from a lot of places throughout the world, but we're just not getting music from Pakistan, and it's important an artist such as yourself who are digging deep. There's others, there's a Rouge Aftab and a few more that are doing this work, but producers who are going into the villages, who are taking it upon
Yeah,
themselves to make
yeah.
sure that the roots are there. And I applaud you, and
And I
I'm
want to
really, really,
extend this,
really
by the
excited
way,
about the
to
project.
different areas of Pakistan. The music you guys are hearing right now is from the Punjab, which is the province that I live in. But the music in the south, in Sindh, completely different. The instrumentation changes, the rhythms change, the language changes, the tonal quality of it is totally different. It's kind of fascinating.
I would love to share that story. I would love to hear more. I'd love to be there and see that because that's the thing. Most people don't even know that. They just think of like, okay, it's one country. No, it's so
No, no,
many
no.
things. It became a
Yeah,
country in 47, but it was like the tribal histories,
yeah,
the various the Silk Roads,
yeah,
the
yeah.
all of these different groups
There's
that have come in there.
there's a lot of crazy stuff that's happening in Pakistan, which is like going into conspiracy theory land, if you know what I mean. There's lots of stuff
Yeah, yeah,
happening,
yeah.
but one thing's for sure, which is that you cannot be an import-based economy in this day and age and hope to also be financially solvent.
No, it's true.
It's not
It's
possible.
very true.
You cannot be
Yeah,
an import-dependent economy. One thing if you're import-based, another thing if you're import-dependent, which we are for
yeah,
everything. you know so and what's
yeah,
happening in the country, that all the farmland that used to belong to the farmers, it's being developed into luxury apartments, high rises, and all those farmers have been
huh?
pushed out of their homes. You never hear about this, right? But this is what's happening. And what's happened over a decade or more than a decade is that the crops that used to yield, there's concrete buildings on that stuff now. So people have nothing to eat. So guess what? We start importing rice, we start importing onions, we start importing tomatoes, all stuff that used to grow locally. See, you see
Yeah,
where it's going though? Like it's like, they're basically again, um, corruption, powerful institutions are essentially taking over spaces which are vital for the country's health, literally health, because we are not growing and selling our own material to our own people. We are actually
yeah.
buying
And you
from
need that.
India
You
or
need that.
Bangladesh or China or Egypt. That's what's happening.
You need that connection.
Mm,
You need that
mm.
connection to where you're from. You need that. You need that. That to be rooted in that place. And I think you're doing really, really powerful work in that environment by connecting people to this music. So I
Yeah,
think you're going to find an interesting success factor with this, where people are going to they're going to hear themselves in this in a way they didn't expect. If they're listening to a Western artist, they're not hearing themselves. They're hearing that Western artist perspective.
right.
But if you're presenting something, because everybody's got a history. We all have a connection, our roots, our own psychological, spiritual roots are there. And if you're creating music from that, it's the difference that you can taste something that was grown in the garden, where you are instead of imported
Right.
from
All processed
wherever,
and all,
all processed, or
chemicalized.
even just grown someplace
Yeah.
else. It's like it's got different things.
Yeah.
We're all connected, and so I think you're going to find something really interesting there. I would
I
definitely,
hope so. I,
um,
I think what
yeah,
really
I think,
appeals to me is the soulfulness of the music.
yeah,
There's an honesty there,
yeah,
which I don't find in pop music. I, I find it in soul music. I find it in jazz. I find it in blues. Don't find it in pop music.
well, pop is a commodity.
That's what I'm saying. Like
Those
it's
those
advertising
others,
junk,
those
right?
others,
You're basically being sold
yeah,
this babble of bullshit it's the advertising dollar. Like, it's
Yeah, yeah. But this speaks to people in a way that really can't.
if they get to know about
It's
it.
the
So that's the
difference.
challenge that I
Yeah.
face.
No. That's why you're talking to me right now, and that's why, we work on making sure that this stuff gets out there
Amazing.
because
That would mean the world to all the artists. I know that for a fact. They will be thrilled. Seriously,
yeah,
they will be thrilled.
this is good work.
Thank you, sir.
Mekaal Hasan, thank you so much for doing this. You're a good man. I look forward to sharing this with our audience, and look forward to advocating for this because it's super important that music from Lahore, music from Pakistan, becomes a gateway where people can learn something more about the country than just the propaganda that's being presented
Absolutely.
around it.
Absolutely.
And it's vital. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. This is Sama, Sales Circuit Music and Art. If you like what you see, if you like what you hear, please subscribe, like, and share so we can share more of these amazing stories from artists from throughout the world on Sama, Sales Circuit Music and Art.